Today's experience was sent to us by an ex-fire service officer. Listen to the end and be blessed. My name is Stanley Francis on Friday morning. Just another day at the fire station. I kissed my wife on the cheek, ruffled my little boy's hair, and grabbed my gear. Be good for your mom, I told him. He giggled and hugged my leg. Stay safe, my wife said, her eyes holding that familiar worry. I always do, I replied with a wink. The firehouse smelled of coffee and smoke, like it always did. The guys were already there, laughing, stretching, checking equipment. Just another day. Then the alarm rang. We jumped into action, pulling on our gear, rushing to the fire truck. The captain shouted details over the radio. Warehouse fire. Possible people inside. The truck roared down the street, sirens wailing. I tightened my straps, heart pounding like a drum. Fires were never the same. Some were small, some were monsters. You never knew which one you'd get. When we got there, thick black smoke was pouring from the windows. Flames licked the sky, twisting like living things. People stood outside, coughing, eyes wide with fear. Is anyone inside? The captain barked. A man nodded frantically. My brother. He went back in. That was all we needed to hear. I pulled my mask down and ran in with my partner. Inside, the heat was unreal, pressing against me like a wall. Fire cracked and hissed, swallowing up everything in sight. My eyes darted through the smoke. Over there, my partner shouted. A figure lay on the floor, barely moving. We rushed to him, lifted him up. He was heavy, but we had no time to think. The fire was closing in. An explosion rocked the building. The force knocked us off our feet. Pain shot through my body. I smelled something awful, burning, but not just wood. It was my skin. I tried to move, but my body didn't listen. Heat crawled over me, eating through my gear. I couldn't breathe. My head spun. Then something strange happened. I wasn't on the ground anymore. I was floating. Below me, I saw my own body, sprawled on the floor, flames around it. My partner was shaking me, shouting my name. But I wasn't there. I was above it all, weightless, silent, watching. And in that moment I knew something had changed. A force pulled me down, like I'm falling beneath the earth. The air rushed past me, but I never reached the ground. The darkness stretched below, endless and empty, yet filled with something I couldn't see, something watching, waiting. My body was weightless, but the fear was heavy. It pressed against my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. The screams hadn't stopped. They were louder now, echoing all around me. Some were cries of agony, others of despair. Some called out for mercy, but there was none. No one was listening. No one was coming to help. The stench of sulfur and rot filled my nostrils, thick and suffocating. My throat burned, my stomach twisted, but there was no escaping it. It was part of this place, part of whatever I had fallen into. Then I saw them again, the shapes in the darkness. They weren't human. Not anymore. Their bodies were twisted, their limbs too long, their fingers ending in sharp, curved claws. Their eyes glowed like burning embers, filled with something worse than hatred. They didn't just want to hurt me. They wanted me to know that I belonged here. They crept closer, moving like shadows, their voices whispering inside my mind. They reminded me of every sin I had ever committed, every wrong I had done. Things I had pushed away, forgotten, things I had justified. But here, there was no justifying. Here I had to face them all. One of the creatures reached out, its clawed hand brushing against my arm. A burning pain shot through me, deeper than just my skin. It was inside me, twisting into my soul. I gasped, but no sound came out. Then, another scene opened again. I saw my life, but not as I had remembered it. Every time I had lied, cheated, hurt someone, It was all there, playing out before me like a living nightmare. But it wasn't just the moments themselves. I felt what they felt. Every person I had wronged, their pain became my own. Their sadness, their anger, their betrayal, it filled me, crushing me under its weight. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The shadows wouldn't let me. They laughed as I suffered. The whispers turned to mocking voices, twisting my own thoughts against me. They told me I was a fool, that I had wasted my life, that I had thrown away every chance I had been given. And then I saw the faces. People I had known. Some I had loved. Some I had respected. Their eyes were wide with terror, their mouths open in silent screams. They reached for me not to hurt me, but to beg for help, for rescue. But there was no rescue. A deep sorrow filled me as I realized the truth. These were people who had thought they were good. Some had gone to church, helped others, lived decent lives. But they were here. But I could see them clearly, as if a heavy fog had lifted just enough for me to recognize them. There was an old friend from school, a man who had once given me advice when I was struggling. A woman who had spent her life caring for others. A preacher I had listened to once, his face now twisted in horror. I wanted to help them. I wanted to reach out, to pull them away from whatever was happening to them. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, forced to watch. Their hands stretched toward me, their fingers trembling. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. Yet somehow, I knew what they were saying. Help me. Please. Why am I here? Their eyes, those eyes, were filled with something deeper than fear. It was the look of someone who had just realized the truth too late. A sinking, unbearable horror. Then I noticed something even worse. The darkness around them wasn't just empty space. It was alive. It moved like smoke, thick and suffocating. But it wasn't smoke. It was something else. Something evil. And it was pulling them back, dragging them away. Some tried to resist. They clawed at the ground, at each other, at anything they could hold on to. But the darkness was stronger. It wrapped around them like invisible chains, dragging them deeper into whatever lay beyond. And their faces, oh, their faces, changed. First, they were desperate. Then, as the darkness swallowed them, something else took over. A kind of hopelessness that crushed whatever fight they had left. Their eyes became empty. Their hands stopped reaching. They stopped struggling. One by one, they were taken. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to cry, but I had no tears. I just stood there watching. And then I felt it. The same darkness creeping toward me. Cold, heavy, wrapping around my feet. It whispered, not in words, but in a feeling. A horrible, knowing feeling. You don't belong here, Earthy. I could feel the darkness pressing against me, surrounding me in a suffocating abyss. And then it came. The presence. It was deeper than the blackness itself, something ancient and powerful beyond comprehension. It did not speak in words, but I understood. I wasn't meant to stay. Not yet. But I would be back. The weight of that truth settled over me, heavier than anything I had ever known. I was falling again. The screams faded, the torment receded, and for the briefest moment, there was nothing. It was not just illumination, it was life itself. It burned away the shadows without effort, not as fire consumes, but as the dawn erases the night. The darkness had no power in its presence. It simply ceased to exist. And there he stood, Jesus. His form was radiant yet gentle, the light emanating from him not blinding but pure, warm, all-encompassing. His very presence carried an authority so absolute that the depths of suffering I had just endured seemed as powerless as mist before the morning sun. I could not speak. I did not need to. Every question, every cry, every fear in me was answered just by looking upon him. There was peace, An overwhelming, indescribable peace that washed over me, into the very core of my being. The torment that had clung to my soul vanished, replaced by something greater than relief. It was rest, true rest, the kind I had never known in life. And without words he spoke. Not through sound, but through inner knowing, through revelation that entered my spirit as naturally as breath enters the lungs. I had to preach. But not just words. Not just good morals. Not just kindness or positivity. Those things alone would not save anyone. Intimacy and total surrender. This was the message. It was not enough to live well by human standards. To truly live was to know God, to yield completely to Him, to abide in His presence, not just in moments of need but in every heartbeat, every breath. I saw, in a way that words could never fully capture, the truth of God's plan. He had never created mankind for destruction. Hell was never meant to be our end. But choice, real, terrifying, eternal choice, was given to us. And many had chosen the darkness, whether through rebellion, complacency, or the deception that a good life without surrender was enough. I felt the sorrow of it, but also the hope. There was still time. His light did not fade, but His presence began to withdraw. I did not want Him to leave. The peace, the love, the absolute certainty of His nearness. I longed to stay in it forever. But I understood. My time was not yet finished. A gentle force guided me, not as a push, but as an invitation, leading me back. The world I had known before, the pain, the suffering, the limitations of flesh, they were waiting for me. But I was no longer the same. The light softened. The sensation of weight returned, the awareness of a body, of breath, of beating heart. And then, I opened my eyes in a hospital bed. Machines beeped steadily beside me. I was back. But I knew, beyond all doubt, that I would never be the same. Please, as you listened, take this as Jesus inviting you to a closer walk with Him. Make amends where necessary. God bless you.